Powered by Riverside FM.
During the tense period of the Cold War, the US government sought to deploy a potential new weapon against the Soviet Union. Mind reading. First conducted in a California research lab in the 1970s, and later at an army base in Maryland, the CIA, Army and Defense Intelligence Agency, recruited men and women claiming to have powers of extrasensory perception, ESP for short, to help uncover military and domestic intelligence secrets. In 2017, the CIA declassified some 12 million pages of records, revealing previously unknown details about the program, which would eventually become known as Project Stargate. By the time the program was shut down in 1995, psychics known as remote viewers had taken part in a wide array of operations, from locating hostages kidnapped by Islamic terrorist groups to tracing the paths of fugitive criminals within the United States. Even before this declassification, the phenomenon of the psychic soldier had penetrated popular culture. The 1978 film The Fury, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Kirk Douglas, follows a former CIA agent using the talents of a young psychic to help retrieve his telekinetic son from terrorists. This film and its depiction of the psychic soldier would provide the basis for the character of Psycho Mantis in the 1998 game Metal Gear Solid, Hideo Kojima's first PlayStation game, and a bona fide trendsetter. This real-world history in Hideo Kojima's stealth action title would prove invaluable to the developers at Nottingham-based Free Radical. Although they had made their name with spy fiction classics like GoldenEye 64 and Perfect Dark, they had now become better known for the multiplayer action of Time Splitters. So their third game as a newly formed studio would be something of a bouquet of their talents. A single-player action game in a near science fiction setting, influenced by film and contemporary video games, but playing within a new realm of the paranormal. On this episode of Bullet Time, we continue our mini-series on the games of Free Radical Design Limited, with 2004's Second Sight. So you know in the video game Daytona USA where they do a rolling star, I thought, yeah, just start recording, just kind of pick up what we're talking about.
It was funny because he was rolling, then he saw that and...
Oh yeah, no, and that terrified it. And
that went him right into the rails.
Yeah, no, exactly. They hit the brakes immediately, seeing that coming up.
It's cool to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise. But yeah, no, now that we've hit recording, I've curled up into my shell. I no longer want to talk about Second Sight.
Oh, no. That's tragic. That's going to put a real damper on the episode.
Do you want to talk about something else instead? I mean...
I want to talk about Psi-Ops, the Mindgate Conspiracy.
Oh, God.
Okay, yeah, perfect. The game's contemporary and competition. Also a very good game in a very different way.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of research, as I should be doing on this podcast. And apparently, like, when they started development on Second Sight and then took it to E3, it was like the same year that they showed off Psi-Ops, and they were just kind of like, oh, we had no idea about this. Like, this is totally taken us by surprise.
And it's especially funny as well, because you've told me Second Sight was the game that they started their studio with the idea of that in mind. Like, that predates, or it kind of comes alongside Time Splitters as a concept.
So,
interesting.
So Minimme, when they left Rare to form their own company, the original plan was that they were going to build on essentially, like, if James Bond was spy stuff, and then Perfect Dark was spy-fi, like, the next step was, well, we need to kind of keep this going, and because, like, 3D engines are starting to, like, incorporate a lot of, like, physics-based stuff, why don't we do a psychic spy game instead? And the original title for the game was called Redemption, but they started working on an engine and, like, very quickly realized this might be, like, quite a bit much. We're going to need, like, quite a bit of time on this. But they ended up putting together like a really fun like multiplayer game demo and went to IDOS and said, can we not do Redemption yet? Can we do this multiplayer game instead? And they were like, well, we've agreed on this. And so they went to Sony and said, can we do this game instead for the PlayStation? So it was basically like, oh, Dad says no, so I'm going to go talk to Mom instead. And basically what Sony told them was, yeah, you can, but it has to be ready for the PS2 launch in 10 months' time. So
wow, that's so interesting. So the thing that Second Sight, something about it that really interests me is how it is so different from Time Splitters. Like,
oh yeah,
it doesn't, like, if it wasn't for that really goofy, strange art style, you would not think they're by the same studio.
so
The tone is so wildly different, and it is by far and away, I'd argue, the best story they ever made, and genuinely just an amazing story in its own right.
Yeah. It's...
And it really kind of puts into sharp relief every other time they attempted a serious story.
oh yeah, which
Hey,
Also, they had one tale in them.
yeah. I always think of when I played it, when I finished it for the first time, I think of the quote that you said to me, Snake, which was that it's like Time Splitters Panto, where it's all the kind of character designs and models from that game, but they're doing like a very serious send up to something like Metal Gear Solid. And it is like, I don't know, it is an interesting juxtaposition between like those flappy character designs, but in a pretty serious story. But like after a while, you do kind of forget.
I think it was for me, because getting right into it, I think it hits the ground running right away on. The character models are so expressive. So this game opens with in medias res, or a flash forward. We actually had a big discussion about this in an essay Discord the other day about, is there a good use of flash forward? And the answer is, yeah, this game.
Yes.
In medias res, rather. I also want to point, I did say this with James, and we just kind of went right on rolling. I want to say, let's not talk about the ending, the twist, until maybe hour 15, hour 30. We just put the kibosh, like a hard line on. Okay. We have to talk about everything but that before.
We're going to do our best to talk about everything but the twists. Like, because
it's hard, but there's a really good game besides the twist. It's just, it nails the run-up, nails the landing.
I agree with that. And I think it's one of those games that even if somebody told you the twist without playing it, you should still play it, because it doesn't really, because like the thing that's really good about this game is like all the set PC stuff, all the plot stuff. Like the twist is really neat and makes the game better, but the game would still be really good without it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think the opening out. Yeah.
To quickly sum up the gameplay, it is just, hey, did you like Metal Gear Solid 3? It's kind of like that, but without the survival mechanics. Instead, you've got a few more bells and whistles and psychic powers, obviously. Because the core control scheme is just very Metal Gear Solid. You've got, even with the Subsistence Camera Edition,
there are three different camera angles, which are all like the different kind of Metal Gear camera angles, weirdly enough.
Yeah. It genuinely is. This is like, so if you're starving for like one more of that, this game will kind of at a baseline entertain you, and you also just will have a very good kind of thriller story on top of it. And to kind of go back around to what I was saying about the character models, like it opens with you on a gurney being taken into a lab somewhere, and there's a doctor with like stained blood all over him, and he's got a needle, and he looks, and he's got really big wide eyes, and the models are really janky and weird, and especially I was playing this on 4K, like Dolphin patched 16:9, which is very goofy, but it holds up. You see stretch textures here and there, but the expressiveness really works for the kind of weird grimness of the story. And the fact that it is a weird Time Splitters cartoon very quickly fades away. And
I think it is funny that you mention it with the intro, because the thing that sticks in my mind in regards to the tone is him being wheeled on the hospital bed. And it's the two security guards, and you just have the guy with the big round face and mustache going, wow, he's banged up. He won't be dating girls anytime soon.
It has that aspect to it too, where it has the very kind of Hollywood dialogue alongside it.
When I was growing up playing this game, I I thought of it as like this real like. So I was young. I was under the age of the rating of the game to play this game.
Yeah, I was in the same boat when I played it.
Yeah, and like with the front cover with the guy with his head in his hands and the gun, and sort of when you open the game and it has the press start screen and it's that really dreary music and he's freaking out in like a interrogation room type setting. It's a wonderful tone setter.
That tone setter.
Yeah,
it's looping around him. He's like banging his fist, and you just immediately know this is going to be such a tense mystery game.
And I think when I played it back then, I sort of bought into the seriousness a lot more than when I played it 2 nights ago.
Oh yeah.
I'm
back
still
then,
easily impressed. I was
I'm very charmed by it, but I guess back then I was more in the boat of I don't like this art style. I wish they committed further to the seriousness. Whereas this time I play it and I hear the cheesy Hollywood dialogue and John Vattic saying every single thought he has aloud. And I sort of, I'm with it. I'm like, yeah, this is cheesy. Everything looks a bit cheesy. It's still telling quite a serious and interesting story, but in a kind of B-movie fun way. And it works on that level as well.
It takes a little bit of the edge off, but I also think it kind of works for the grimness because like all the character models are so weird and it makes John look even kind of freakier and odd.
100%.
All banged up.
He's so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
It's very pulpy in kind of a way of. It's very weird that like, if there was no if you just kind of went in and went like, oh, like because I played this on the Dolphin emulator as well, just because it was like the easiest thing to get hold of. Like in my head, I was like, oh, this is like the best Metal Gear Solid game for the GameCube that wasn't made by Kojima. Because then I was like, oh yeah, there actually was a Metal Gear Solid game for the GameCube, which was that. Well, it's Twin Snakes, which is obviously MGS1, but with the mechanics of 2, but also like direction from, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like a Japanese action movie director. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they told me that like they brought that guy on because Kojima really liked him. And the guy, originally his plan was, oh no, I'm going to keep this subtle and keep within the tone of Metal Gear Solid. But Kojima said, no, I hired you for the action schlock. I want that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I did not know that aspect. It has, staying on Twin Snakes for a moment, I think just my favorite anything redirection in that cutscene is there is a scene when Liquid is just talking to Snake and he jumps up on a rail on a catwalk. And I don't actually remember if this is in the original because I like this moment so much that I think this has to be an ad. He just stops monologuing, does a front flip for no reason, and then just keeps talking. And it's the most excessive. Okay, sure. He just... the front flip doesn't add to what he's saying whatsoever. It's just...
that is good. And people say this isn't the best version of the game. Come on, he does a front flip.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's you get more bang for the buck. It's like it makes me think of the bit where, is it Donald? I want to call him Sigurd, but like that's his name. Like in
I know who you're talking about, the bomb disposal guy.
No, the Dark Chief.
Sigurd. Okay, yeah, Dark Chief.
Yeah, so he's in the prison cell and like Snake is talking to him. And in the original version of Metal Gear Solid, is like a guard walks past the door, looks in, sees he's not talking to anybody. And Snake's hiding behind the door, but in Twin Snakes, he's just like on the roof, just like spread out like a cat.
He jumps in Spider-Man's.
That's good.
It's such a dumb good port, and I add to the grenade launcher as well, I believe, from 2, and a lot of gameplay mechanics, which 1 was not built for. But yeah,
to bring it back around, the reason I bring up Twin Snakes though is that I think it's like. Second Sight is the game that you expect to be goofier because of how its graphics look, but it's way more serious versus Twin Snakes where you expect it to be serious because it's Metal Gear Solid 1, but it's like tone-wise it's like way goofier as a result. And
well, it's a mixed bag because the Metal Gear Solid illusions go a lot deeper than just it controls like it because it does. I think what I love especially just going through it is the propensity and sheer number of Easter eggs the game has.
So, a question to both of you.
when you started the game, you're locked in a cell and you use your telekinetic powers to get out, and then John is, as Minimme says, John is just narrating all of his powers, like, "Whoa, I can do that now? Huh? This power will help.
I don't
better
feel
learn how
so
to
good."
use this." But did either of you like get spotted by the guards and then
Yes.
you go back into your cell and then lock them in?
No, I didn't do that.
That right off the bat, you can do that, and there is unique dialogue. They will have a fully voiced conversation about, like, damn it, why didn't you bring your radio? Well, okay, how about we use your radio? And then they start beating each other up, and it will just keep going.
Oh, that's good. There's one line I like in that scene where when you're in the second room and just fiddling with things, he about 20 seconds worth of fiddling with things, he's like, okay, I think I figured out these powers. I need to move on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you figured them out? It's
He's
quite
pretty
funny.
confident. He's taking it all in stride.
Another day.
Another day, another power.
Yeah, and I love when he basically you kill one of those guys and he's like, oh my god, I didn't mean to kill that guy, and you like throw a bin into his head.
Oh yeah, no, and he was like, I didn't mean to do that. I'm a monster.
It was funny in my case because I just punched him out. So we play as John Vattic. The punch animation he has is the wimpiest thrown arms.
Oh, it's so good.
He's just like, and it's just this funny thing that I just kind of like pranced at this guy for a minute, did the wobbly arms, and he drops and John goes, oh my god, I killed him. I didn't mean to do that. And in that case, I believe he didn't mean to kill him because that wouldn't kill anything.
Yeah. It's like this really slow, noodly, like a few slaps. It's very
I especially
good.
love it because sometimes you hear like these meaty, wacky punch sounds, and other times guards just kind of like look like they're mildly bemused. Like, hey, stop that. You shouldn't melee in this game because it's so inconsistent, and you've got so many better options.
Yeah.
No, once you get the tranquilizer dart, which has like infinite ammo, it's like, I'm just gonna use this.
Another Metal Gear Solid pull.
Yeah,
you get the trank, and off you go.
It is weird that the GoldenEye guys would eventually make a game like Metal Gear Solid, though. And as a Metal Gear Solid pastiche is really good, but also there's a lot of stuff in this that, I don't know, it's kind of weird to think of, like, no one's really done send-ups of Metal Gear. Well, I was actually trying to think, are there games that are, like, send-ups of Metal Gear?
There's Headhunter and, I think, Siphon Filter, although that was more a contemporary and had its own identity.
Winback, I guess?
Winback, I believe,
Fiction?
was Nintendo wanted them.
Oh, Spy Fiction, yeah, 100%.
Spy Fiction. I've got to play that. That has been on my backlog.
It's very odd.
Yeah,
it's a sweary game, right?
Yeah, it is.
God.
The kind of early
there were
sweary.
Metal Gear Solid contemporaries. It's funny that there hasn't really been a kind of. It's weird. It could be made as a Metal Gear Solid 1 to 3. Could be a throwback genre these days.
Yeah.
Because
it
has such a unique control scheme. Nothing really plays like it anymore. And it's funny in playing like this. It's the same deal with Metal Gear Solid, is that actually this one you can definitely be a lot more aggressive than Metal Gear Solid 1 to 3. The combat controls are definitely a lot more weighted in the player's favor, and you're very sturdy if you're not playing on challenging.
Yeah, you can take a lot of bullets. You can kind of just walk through and be like Darth Vader hallway scene if you really want to.
And
Pretty
then
much.
you have the ability to just heal up like whenever you want.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
But that's kind of how the game begins, is you're in this facility and you don't know anything and you're kind of going room to room and you are just getting powers back to back. And the selection of powers is very nice. And I love not just how they work, but also the kind of fluff of them. I love the charm ability. I've always been charmed by it because you're not actually invisible. You're just kind of psychically suggesting you don't see me, and it's just one of these really neat little differentiations because it's such a perfect reason as to why it doesn't work on security cameras or anything like that.
Yeah, I quite like as well that I think it's this one, and also healing was another one that I thought of. Whereas like because the game like has a targeting system not just for the guns but also for the powers, you can use abilities on other people, and like the healing one especially, like there is a mission in this which is a escort mission, but it actually works really well because you can just heal the person that you're escorting whenever you need to, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and it does have a tooltip, though it is very easy to miss.
Yeah.
And mine procced wrong. Mine, when I was on that escort mission, mine just procced in the weirdest place, and it was like, I just looked at the top of the screen and was like, why are you telling me this?
No.
They have not been damaged. But then John he gets to a computer and he gets in a lift rather, and he flashes back and gets his first dollop of information of why he's here.
And that's where we get the tutorial for the game.
Yeah, that's where we get the incredibly long tutorial for the game.
It's very bad. It's very boring.
You
delete it.
It's this very weird bit of pacing, which generally I think this game's good with, that you get dropped into this, like... I complained about Neo Tokyo on the Time Splitters 2 episode for, like, you get dropped in and suddenly you have all these new objectives. I think this does it well, where John does talk a lot, but there's also stuff that you have to intuit because you are locked in a tight space with all these, like, bits and pieces.
You know what's...
Then you get... Yeah, and then so you have to show some initiative and work some stuff out, and then 20-minute long, boring tutorial.
I really love the tutorial for it, though. The Modern Warfare 2. Okay, we're going to teach you how to play the game in this fake version of the game. Whereas I love an obstacle course, which is actually like an in-king obstacle course. But even weirder than that, the game begins with like, John Vattic goes over and then he's just like, oh, I'm the science guy. And they're just like, no, you have to learn how to shoot. And that's like the only time because everyone's really nice to John. You would expect like, oh, it's a military thing. Oh, they're just gonna like, oh, fuck you, nerds, chew you out. But like, no, everyone's just like, oh, great shooting, John. Oh, you're a natural, John.
Yeah,
oh, good job.
You keep yourself in shape for a pen pusher.
Oh yeah,
I noticed that line.
And it's funny because I was looking at that and I just had this immediate thought of, wow, John looks emaciated. I thought that was just him being in like the lab situation. I forgot he genuinely looks like he has no body fat whatsoever.
Yeah, he looks incredible for a nerd.
People at home who haven't played this game, the easiest way I could describe how John Vattic looks is like, if you try to like draw Gordon Freeman from memory, is like it's just like, what does a nerd look? He kind of looks like the bad guy from the TV series Heroes, which is only something that I remember. But they had a nerd in that who is like a pen pusher who looks exactly like John Vattic.
That's very good. He has like giant veiny forearms.
Not
a characteristic of a guy holding a pen.
I had to actually went looking him up, and I think John's actor does like a pretty good job.
Oh yeah,
it's very weird in scenes where he's with like characters like Tom, where he's with characters voiced by Tom Clark Hill, and a selection of characters doing incredibly ropey accents.
Which
is great. But Stark is played by Tom Clark Hill, who will go on to play Cortez in the next game, and he's got a very, very distinctive voice. He's very loud, very enthusiastic. Meanwhile, Stark, Colonel Stark, he is... Meanwhile, Vattic is played by... what's his name? I've even forgotten it already. I have to Google it, but he's... Oh, no. I'll just say this. His voice actor, this is his one, like, proper role. He is an animator by trade.
I like that a lot.
The guy wasn't a voice actor, and, like, after... He's one of those guys who was in the film industry, went to the games industry, and then went back to the film industry. He's like a big VFX supervisor now or something.
Wow. He was the lead animator on Time Splitters Future Perfect. His name is Andrew Lawson.
He does a good job considering. He does a very good job considering.
Yeah, it's convincing.
He just kind of banged one out, did like a pretty good job. There's a few scenes where I think he sounds a little flat, but like when he's good, he's really good, and he does sell like a guy who does not know what's going on, which is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, like he never sounds like a baby, like as in, oh, how do my arms work? But it also, it does tie the line really nicely, yeah.
He's very confident though. It's kind of the opposite of sounding like a nervous baby. His guy who got powers is very excited to use them almost.
And
it's
love-
funny. It's funny thinking about that tutorial. Sorry to change the topic slightly. We'll go back. It's
all
funny
right.
thinking about that tutorial put against how great the sort of hospital scenes are. Like that tutorial is so strangely down the straight and narrow video game tutorial to the point where like you can't imagine this facility being built for this obstacle course. Like it is this incredible giant concrete walled facility made entirely for you to jump over like waist high walls.
It's bizarre, like
you gotta
that,
shimmy across stuff.
Yeah.
it's that
big
and how
dips.
nice everybody is, where it feels like it's like John Vatic's birthday, and they put this on for it.
Yeah.
It's like, before he goes to Russia to to find the scientists.
Yeah.
And it's
then
funny.
Yeah.
It is funny how much you're saying how nice they are to him after what begins, because the line is John walks in and just goes, "I'm an advisor. I'm not as like, oh, you're coming along with us on this military expedition." He's like, "I'm an advisor," and he's like, "Well, I advise you to get a sidearm." And like, and after that, John just goes on, and if you're playing well, just fucking aces this
strolls
military
through it,
course. Yeah, with
he's
no
so-
complaints.
He's so good at. Can it is jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit like the chronology of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep you're in the
oh.
present, and you keep going back to the past and learning stuff.
That's true. I love how the sniper rifle operates.
Oh,
in
I
this.
was gonna say,
yeah.
this game cracks like the third-person sniper rifle shit.
Yeah.
Like
It's so
you got,
good.
you bring it up, you have a little screen on like this, basically in the bottom right of the UI, and it's like silent scope. It's just it adapts that to a third person or first person, because if you use it in first person, it functions differently. But either way, they are just some of the nicest video game snipers to use with an auto aim system.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you crack the nut of, well, we don't want to make this a first person, even though this game does have a first person camera in it, we don't really want to do a first person game, but like, how else do you do a sniper? And it's like, oh, and it reminded me a bit of, oddly enough, the Hulk game that came out like years before and is really bad. But because they wanted to make it look like Ang Lee's Hulk, it does the whole comic book panel stuff where you see like gameplay happening on one side as you're doing stuff on the other. But like this is actually a really good implementation of, oh yeah, we just have UI, which is like, just I know what the context of this is because it looks like a sniper rifle scope. This is, this just works.
Yeah, it does a lot of things. It does a lot of things around the edges like that are just like these nice, like, oh, that's a really fun little way of designing this. Like, I really love the computers in this game.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, they're just like every time you see a computer, I just want to log on and click on things. It's for some reason, some part of my brain enjoys this fictional operating system that's very simple version of early Windows. And I don't know. I think it's clever to just.
There's a lot of dialogue tied to them. Like, they're not just functional; they're just filled with Easter eggs and incidental details. And it brings me to another one of my favorite Easter eggs, and it's in sharp relief to the guards, like beating on each other. So you go through the training course. John is like in a meeting with the whole of the Winter Ice team, as they're called, which is a little collective. They are going to a little region in Siberia because there's psychic phenomena, and John is a psychic debunker, so he's really pissy about it. He's like, I debunk psychics. He is being completely atheism about this until a psychic walks in and like she always gets on my case whenever I publish anything.
It's like good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Just like, I hate her. I'm never going to work with her. She's not going to be my partner. It's like, oh, but together we'll make a pretty good team. Which then becomes very weird in one of the future sections that we'll
But
get
what I
to.
love about this scene, I love how he's like stumped in this really dumb, hammy way where she goes, don't you believe in the scientific method? And he's like, yeah, of course. And the psychic method is da-da-da-da-da. And she goes, well, then shouldn't you come to Siberia to prove us wrong? And he's just like, well, shit, I'm blown the fuck out. I better go to Siberia.
Damn, I guess my pride is to
I've got nothing else going on.
All right.
yeah,
Sure.
I'll just be grading papers for the week. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sure. Give me the sniper rifle. We're going to Siberia.
Yeah, check this
I'm
out.
actually really good with the sniper rifle. Check this out.
And you learn that, and John, it flashes, it kind of comes back to the present, and John like kind of crawls up now in his like beaten up state, and you're back in the lab, and he just says winter ice. Walks out the elevator, a guard spots him, and he's like, get down on the ground. John starts having headaches and like blows him away with your new Psi attack power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the level begins. And if you go on the computer and you like back out of the UI, you can go into a chat room where he was talking with his wife/girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And she will just, and I sat there for 5 minutes. The messages just don't end. They just keep coming. It's like, are you okay? I'm getting worried now. What's going on? It's like,
Wow.
Jesus, I didn't even kill this guy. Cutscene John did. And that's the exact tonal opposite of the guards. It's like, you just murked this dude. Super hard.
God, I thought you were going to mention that there's the nice Easter egg of the you have like so certain missions require you finding floppy disks, including there's one towards the end of the game which is just such a weird elaborate puzzle with floppy disks, but you can find them in some levels and they have like time splitters style mini games.
That is
on them.
also a very fun mini game. Yeah, no, in the later on Asylum level, yeah, you can go into a gun room, and if you know to use your telekinesis to pull it off the top shelf, yeah, you get a little mini game. And there's another level where there's an arcade machine, and you best believe I put some time in on that arcade machine.
Oh, absolutely.
A very simple but very fun little kind of asteroidsy game, which it's just very charming that it's there, and you can play pool again.
Yeah, no, they brought back Pool from Time Splitters 2, which is nice.
It
does still have that sense of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, there's just a lot of tiny little moments where you're like, oh, that's cool. It's cool that they did that. It feels like a game they finished a year before it came out and spent the final year like tinkering, you know?
Yeah, just like plugging in
things.
all these things that are completely extraneous, but like it adds so much kind of depth to the game.
Yeah.
And, like, if you go through this, and it's one of those things where I actually went Googling like, okay, Easter eggs, and this would be like an Easter egg hunter's wet dream, but I think it's because it's such a niche game, like I don't think it traveled very well.
No, I was going to get into this maybe towards the end, but the unfortunate thing with this game is that, like, so they were working on it. They basically started work on this the moment that Time Splitters 2 came out, and as we kind of mentioned in that episode, they've fallen out with IDOS at this point because it's like you didn't print enough copies. Like Time Splitters 2 like could have been in everyone's homes, but you didn't print enough copies of this, and now you're saying it didn't sell enough. You know, like what the fuck? And then IDOS is like, we're going under. Soz guys, find another publisher. So
Yeah, Codemasters came in on this one.
yeah, so they had
Strange choice.
Well, here's the thing. So they had gone to the original publisher that they had gone to for Second Sight, gave them the money for development, and then like quite a bit of a way in changed their mind and said, no, actually, this is a bit weird. We don't know how to sell this source.
Right.
And they went to Codemasters, who were just like, oh no, actually, this game's really cool, and we will like help you push it as much as possible. To the point of this game wasn't meant to get a PC release, but that was something that happened like a year afterwards, and Codemasters kind of made that happen, like help them get it over the line.
Interesting.
The first time I actually beat this game, because I never finished it when I had it on GameCube as a kid. The first time I beat it was actually a pirated PC copy. I've committed to a crime now. Oh well. But I have bought it on Steam since. Funny how it runs worse nowadays. Genuinely, the best way to experience Second Sight is get it on Dolphin, patch it to 16:9. The worst you'll get is there's some shimmer here and there, and this game was not meant to run in 16:9, so in cutscenes, characters on the edge of shot just disappear because they're not in frame. They're not meant to be in frame. But other than that, runs perfectly well.
It's the one advantage of the PC version, which doesn't have controller support, by the way, which is very tragic.
No.
And no UI scaling as far as I saw, unless I missed it.
It's very, very tiny in whatever modern resolution. But the computers are awesome. Aside from the fact that left click is bound to the space bar, the computers are cool because you know use them like you are on your computer.
They're diegetic.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, good word.
Yeah, they're sensible.
Yeah.
Skeuomorphic? I don't know what the...
yeah, it's kind of skeuomorphic. Diegetic, I think, is a pretty good term for that, I would say.
Yeah, but otherwise don't play the computer version. It's terrible.
No, if you can run it... though, is it the PC version that's the only one that runs at 6? Or does Dolphin... See, the problem is that...
Dolphin felt perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable.
You know how...
it has bad frame rate on the PC. I was having stutters.
Yeah.
So you know how they say that like people remember stuff in black and white, like your memories aren't like properly in color. I don't know if that's actually true or not. Like I'm actually trying to remember something now and being like, is that in color or not?
I remember I got asked once by a therapist, was like, do you like, are your memories in black and white or in color? And mine are all in color.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I kind of got
mine
told,
are too.
Yeah, I kind of got told what that means is you see things for what they are, but that was a very simplified part of a longer explanation.
Okay, the only reason I mention that is that whenever I try and remember games, I remember them in like 30 frames a second. Like even if it's a game even if it's like Doom Eternal and I played it at 120 FPS, it's like, it just runs kind of at 30 frames a second, right? Isn't that right?
James, I've got to ask a question. Do you have a headache?
Not at the moment, no. Although I did,
because I think your brain hurts.
I did learn
that hurts. I just had to refresh your memory on that one.
By the way, folks, welcome to Bullet Time, video game. I was actually wondering whether to wait until we did the bit of the talking about the spoiler and then actually introducing the episode then. But I thought, no, grass on the field.
I think that was to save you from the horrible pause I just put in from what I said.
Speaking of which,
just drop the spoiler entirely to break the silence. Just like, so anyway.
Yeah,
if I make it
at the end of the game,
that could be a good punishment if I just say something you don't like. It's like you're dropping it through the gallows.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm Hot Cider as per usual, James. Joining me on this mini-series about the video games of Free Radical Design Limited, called Future Perfect, is YouTube's very own psychic soldier, Snaker.
Hello. I've never predicted anything.
That's very true. Also joining us is a video maker and fellow appreciator of the 7 out of 10 game from the early 2000s. Now, quick question. Is it pronounced Minimme or Minimme? I couldn't figure this out.
It's pronounced Minimme.
Okay, good.
I was writing my email address when I was 8 years old. And
okay.
I liked Austin Powers, and my older brother called me his Mini-Me, so I typed in Mini-Me like this. And I don't know, like 20 years later, it's stuck. Like,
it's a good name. I mean, when I see it, I go, yeah, no, I know who that is. Is
it? Because I tell people to Google Mini-Me and they can't spell it because I've written it like this.
And they just get pictures of Vern Troyer.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's Mini-Me, and I'm excited to be here to talk about Psi-Ops, the Mindgate Conspiracy.
Oh no, not again.
We did fucking go immediately off Psi-Ops, the Mindgate Conspiracy, which, yeah, maybe while we're just being completely disorganized, which is very much in the theme of Second Sight, Psi-Ops, much dumber game, but in a good way.
So yeah. I haven't played Psi-Ops, the Mindgate Conspiracy. I maybe would like to for the podcast at some point, but all I know is that it's a midway game, and so yeah, it is very much on that kind of like Eugene Jarvis wavelength of, hey, he's a stupid guy, and everyone in this game is kind of a bit dumb, but it's a lot of fun, don't worry about it.
It kind of feels better to play and plays with physics more, and is sort of more explosive and action movie-like. It's funny thinking about, like, I feel like if you were a person who was terminally online in 2004, you remember the Great War of Psi-Ops versus Second Sight in the same way you probably remember Infamous versus Prototype, or
Yep.
or Sonic versus Mario, I suppose. It's kind of like the ultra nerdy gamer version of that.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because some of the a lot of this interview stuff I had culled from Stephanie Sterling had written a, like, I don't know really what the word would be, I guess just a retrospective of the game, like 10 years after it had come out in like 2004. Yeah, so she wrote this in 2014, and like the big thing was comparing the two games together. Not that it really mattered, because like Infamous and Prototype were quite, like, because Infamous was a Sony published game, there was like quite a lot of excitement around it, and so Prototype being this competitive thing is like, oh yeah, the heavyweights going at each other. Meanwhile, both these games sold okay and have kind of been forgotten by time.
This was a little guerrilla skirmish in the end. It wasn't really a war, it was a skirmish.
No, it wasn't like a Cold War, like, proxy battle. It was
it was like 100 people on the IGN forums, basically.
Yes.
And it's as always the case with like Infamous, Prototype, and Sonic, Mario, and whatever. They have the barest thread of relation, which is psychic powers. If you want like an action game, if you want something that's really full throttle, and they are both movie-like, but Second Sight is kind of like a very slow, kind of pacey thriller, whereas Psi-Ops is like a dumb science fiction action movie that is perfectly of its time. Maybe like a few years later, it's kind of like it always makes me kind of think of Underworld because of that fucking theme song it has with my mind.
Oh,
I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's nothing like Underworld or Blade or whatever it like is, but it has that same sort of dark, grungy aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very aggressive. And yeah, it's much more of an action game. You control a lot nicer, a lot more directly, and you're much more violent.
Yeah.
No.
I think I don't think it's aged better, but I think it plays better. Like, I don't think there's more reasons to play Psi-Ops now than there is Second Sight, but if you had 5 minutes with one or the other, you'd think that Psi-Ops is a better game.
I can't argue with that, because there is an adjustment period. Second Sight is, those controls take a minute to click with you. Once they do, all very nice, but Psi-Ops, it's bang, you're off. And I would say both games kind of share another quality, which is gameplay-wise, both kind of fall apart at the end, but I think Second Sight holds on a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't really speak to Psi-Ops the Mindgate Conspiracy because I haven't played it, but like, it's interesting that this isn't like Time Splitters, but it does have quite a lot of, well, again, like we were talking about, it had like, you know, a lot of like little games in it and like a lot of different things interacting with each other. Because this was like purely a single player game and like had not a consistent narrative, but it's like it's not jumping through different time periods. It is staying pretty much within two time periods and kind of hopping back and forth with them. But it's still kind of like sort of near enough future, sort of science fiction kind of thing. But they do a lot to try and squeeze as much as they can with this like third person game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because every stage is a puzzler. They have little like security puzzles, turn off this, get an access code. There's not really backtracking, but you basically move from kind of stealth arena to stealth arena, and it's always kind of distinct puzzles to how am I going to find a code to open a door, to get to a computer, to kind of open an access lift, or as you kind of get further into the facility, how do I use my projection ability to get around these lasers and turn these things off. And, you know, it moves from like set piece to set piece. And also another thing that helps, and this kind of moving the story forward. So you bumble around the lab for a bit, you find your patient records, and John Vattic finds out that he is John Vattic. But he also, like, because he's now had the first flashback of his incredibly boring military training, he's now like, he looks up members of the team and he's like, oh, Jane, the woman who owns me all the time, oh, she's dead? What the hell? And then he flashes back again. And then you play then there's the beginning of the Siberia sections. And it has just this really nice rhythm where you have the present day stuff which is very sneaky, stealth focused and puzzle focused, and then you go to Siberia and you don't get your psychic powers for a while, but you have lots of guns and you have a squad. So you have that burst of action and learning what happened.
And I think probably thanks to Time Splitters, the shooting is quite good. Like,
it's very automated, but I think in a way that works really nicely because it's third person and because you're usually doing a bit more than shooting. Like, it doesn't, I say doesn't matter. It feels kind of nice just, using that sort of lock on just to aim for the most part.
It's not great, but it's breezy, it's approachable. I think, there's a nice little dichotomy. And the funny thing about the modern day sections, there's a twist, is that you sort of discover the powers alongside John. There's this nice little like synergy and cohesiveness to that, which is in stark contrast to walking through that tutorial, climbing over walls. I guess it's kind of that half of the game is compelling entirely in that way, at least for the first act. It's sort of like a process of discovery, and it syncs up with John discovering everything that's going on. And I kind of like that about the game. It's kind of what helps set it apart from Psi-Ops, I suppose. Like, Psi-Ops is really dumb. There's some really just clever little...
I can't even remember how you like uncover your powers in Psi-Ops.
I think you do have amnesia and you do have flashbacks in Psi-Ops, but
see, if it's a midway game, I imagine you would just pick up like giant power-ups and just...
It's a bit more like diegetic than that.
Okay.
It has, I will say though, Psi-Ops has one of my, just to kind of keep on it for a moment, Psi-Ops does have like bosses that are themed around your powers, I believe. And, kind of like, but the one I remember is like this giant guy who's the telekinesis boss, and you're in a train yard and he's just tossing stuff at you. And I love boss fights where you just have to dodge debris, and it's one of the best and only examples of that. And it's kind of just staying on that for a moment. The little skirmish these games had is that you didn't really have many psychic games for a good while, and it came along with Ragdolls and Havoc Physics, and then the tech's getting better, but I don't know. There was kind of a tragedy that as Ragdolls got more realistic, they also got kind of weightier and more dull.
Yeah, because the only other games
it is funny that like picking up like a trash can is just as heavy as picking up a human in this game.
Oh yeah,
like
it's funny because from the sound effects and like if you run into them, they just bounce. It's like these are all plastic tubs.
Yeah,
there's no way these have any actual mass to them whatsoever.
But like at the time, I remember being kind of like, I adored this. Like, this was my Half-Life 2 gravity gun game, Like,
I know what you mean. Do you know what game I played a ton of because it had really fun, dumb ragdolls? Minority Report.
Oh, that was good too, yeah.
I didn't even know there was a Minority Report
There was a Minority Report game, and it's a serviceable brawler.
It's quite good.
I never played too far in it because I would open the office stage, which is this, like, you're in the police office. I've never seen the film, by the way. I haven't really played the game. And I would turn on the slow motion sheet and throw people and kick them through glass windows and, like, make them tumble down stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned the glass. I feel like the glass in that game was the most memorable thing. It broke so well. It's quite good in Second Sight too.
And did enemy ragdolls, they knocked each other over, right? Because I have this distinct memory of like in a mall level getting charged by like 10 goons or whatever, and I did a spin kick and just all of them tumble over in slow motion.
Oh, that's good.
This was around the time when I was really young, and I would have a VCR and I would just record gameplay footage to a recordable VCR, and I just have little ragdoll compilations to myself.
God, I imagine those are long gone now.
They've disappeared. I had Jack 2 chases and like Tony Hawk combos.
I would love it if you just put this on the main channel one day. Just ragdoll compilations.
I destroyed so many of my dad's like, crime procedurals.
Oh, you just recorded over copies of Silent Witness to record.
Yes.
Wedding tape, just ragdoll physics.
It's an improvement. Ragdoll physics. You don't understand.
Yeah. No, they were cool in this game. And I also remember kind of finding the blood splats fun as well. Like, it was fun picking someone up, throwing them into a wall, and it left a big blood splat on the wall. And me as a 10-year-old being like, yeah, playing an adult game.
Really? And they scream and squirm, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, maybe this is disturbing.
It is funny.
That mental asylum level that's coming up.
Yeah.
That one always stuck out to me as really dark and gloomy. And playing it again, it was still really dark and gloomy. Probably a little cheesier than I remember.
I think the music is doing most of the selling.
Yeah,
Because,
and the rain
as well.
Rain sound effect. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, finding Jane and she's all messed up is a nice little moment.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I quite like the plot conceit of this game. Is this like a smaller story spoiler that we get? Well, I guess we're explaining the plot, so I guess we're eventually get.
We're working our way through.
So yeah, so John Vattic, he looks at her on the computer, and it says she's dead, and he's like, "No, is that right?" And he has a flashback, and then you play like, okay, what happened between him and Jane? But you find out, oh no, Jane, you actually saved Jane at the end, and she's still alive. And he goes, "Oh no, the computer's wrong, and no, she's saved." And I think I know exactly where she is. Or
no, he finds it on the computer, but yeah,
the computer.
What Jane does is she says, "Oh, I saw something." So she, in an active gunfight, and I'm not cinema sinsing that, but just runs off ahead into this little shed, and the Winter Ice team of soldiers said, "John, Jane's ran off. Go get her." While you are under fire from like a facility, but you go, and John just kind of runs in and says, "This place is gonna blow." And she's like, "How do you know?" And he's like, "Run!" And then there's the blast, and you come back, and her status goes from deceased to imprisoned.
Yeah, the computer just updates while you are having while you're having a think, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, fair enough. All right,
okay, I just changed the past.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right."
No worries.
I do at least like, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the Siberia stuff, but it is just like, yeah, it's the GoldenEye people. They can't stop doing big spy bases in Siberia. Like, Time Splitters 2 literally begins with, and they're like, what if we made an entire game which was just that? Or at least half the game was just that. And it's like, yeah, go ahead, because you do it really well. So
you've got those, snow environments on lock. They're pretty sweet.
Yeah.
They really love... what's the Bottom film? Is it on Majesty's
Guest House
Service?
Paradiso.
Yeah, Guest House Paradiso. Yeah, that famous Bond film starring Bottom.
I thought you said, what's that Bottom film?
Oh, no, I said, what's that Bond film?
Oh, okay. Very different.
Did they have Bottom over in... I was about to call it the Antiquities, but that's not what you call... Sorry about
Antiquities?
that.
No, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I do know On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the snowy one, so well done. But explain Bottom to me. I'm confused.
So Bottom was a British comedy series, which was like...
Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson, slapstick. Comedy, kind of classic.
Okay.
It's a classic-ish over here. I'm a big fan of
Mr.
Rick
Bean
Mail.
if they hated each. Like, there's two of them, and it's like punk rock Mr. Bean is how it is. Basically, it's like a weird sequel to, there was a show in the 80s called The Young Ones, which were...
Same actors, yeah.
Yeah, they were like 80s punks who all lived together in a student flat, and that was kind of slapstick as well. And then this was like, what are these guys like in their late 30s, early 40s? And turns out pretty much the same. So
it's funny though. One of my favorite facts about hooligans, the young ones. Sorry,
yeah.
The young ones was that. So it's that slapstick comedy, students living in a shared flat, just beating the shit out of each other and making really surreal jokes. And once an episode, there would be a musical act, and that was because inserting a musical act just arbitrarily got them better funding from the BBC. So they would just suddenly like Amazulu or just some other musical band would just turn up. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And that's how they just basically scammed more money out of the BBC.
Is it really ham-fisted? Like they just play a song and leave kind of thing?
They would just appear and go. Yeah.
That's so good. Good gag.
Like they would not bother to explain it because the whole thing was surreal bits. Yeah, and then Vivian, played by Adrian Edmondson, would drive through a snow palace.
Why not?
Why not?
But yeah,
Is there
the
much
asylum.
surreal slapstick humor in Second Sight? Not massively.
No.
Could it have had it?
Not unless you create it.
Yeah.
No, I suppose you can ragdoll people, which
I tried during this little section in the beginning level where you have to operate laser gates. I was trying to get the code off of a scientist. There was one computer I could not access. I don't know if it's inaccessible or I just couldn't work out the trick because I grabbed him. By the way, another Metal Gear Solid thing, you have the chokehold.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
But I couldn't, so I just thought I'm going to drag him to the laser and see if I can throw him in, and it didn't work. I was quite annoyed by that. The throw function seems completely superfluous.
yeah. It's like it was implemented just to have it, but
Just to have a means to not kill someone in a chokehold, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah.
I do like how you can just go around choking everyone out.
And you'll
Like-
and sometimes you'll get unique dialogue. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's just amusing. Like John Vattic is such an amusing character to me. Like the way his mood seems to swing and stay very confident the whole time is just very funny to me. Like this
He's
guy
very-
is walking through a mental asylum choking out people.
It's very dad mode. It feels like
Yeah.
it's just like a dad going on a Metal Gear Solid style adventure.
I mean, it's funny with the way it begins and him saying, I ain't going to Siberia. And like, he's wimpy for like 2 scenes for
Yeah.
5 seconds. And then he's like, nah, I'm in the conspiracy. I gotta solve this. And like, no backing down. I'm gonna break into this mental asylum. No one can stop me whatsoever.
Even when he's introduced to the psychic stuff, he's just like, "No, this is bullshit. I'm gonna disprove all of this. Don't you worry."
Even when he starts getting psychic powers, his incredulity holds out for a while. But he's
funny.
talking to a blue ghost child, and he's like, psychics aren't real.
It's like in the back of his mind he like knows that he has to say these things. Like
Yeah.
like he is super keen to go through that military training course, but he knows like to say that, oh, I'm a scientist, I don't do this, and then bam, impresses everyone. It's like
He's trying to act above it all, so it's even
all the
cooler when
time.
he just.
But he gives in
bombs
so
it.
quickly. He's like, yeah, no, I'm going to Siberia. I'll go. All right.
Let's get cracking. I'll pack my bags. Actually, I don't need them.
I don't want to kill people.
I
Actually,
love him.
I really enjoy killing people. Sorry.
I just choked out 30 guys. Anyway, yeah.
God.
You can
so-
find an assault rifle in the military training arcade level and start a gunfight, but once you do, you will just get attacked by soldiers until you die. It's just a prolonged game over.
Right.
It is a shit. This game is very arcadey in regards to, and the asylum level was where I noticed it. Yeah, enemy, they'll just keep generating people as long as they need them, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when you go to I don't want to call it the fucking ghetto, but even though that's probably when
That level is called Street Life, which is
okay.
Oh,
but
cool.
but I was thinking of where
you're in Queens.
yeah, you have to get those free gang members in big quotation marks to do something for you, but I couldn't quite figure out what to do yet, so I kept
That's one
killing
of the
them,
puzzles.
and they kept going and just generated new ones, and it's like, oh, this is good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's fun doing that with his crappy little melee animation. He's just walking around the back streets like slapping dudes to the ground. It's very cute. Go, John.
One thing I guess I'll quickly like kind of breeze through it then, because that is basically the structure of the story at this point. It's
a
so
road
now
trip.
I will
Yeah.
free us to talk about anything we want in any stage by saying John in the present is kind of unraveling the mystery. He finds out a member of the Winter Ice crew is dead, and then his brain says, "Nah, they ain't." Yeah.
It's my favorite. It's one of I've never seen any story that's done this, and it's like my favorite thing of, oh, I can't believe he's dead. Flashback. No, fuck you, they didn't. Oh, I guess they're not. All right.
Like John actually is the universe. Just
he does.
repeatedly. Like,
And
he gets Jane out of the asylum, and like he's like, oh, I can't believe the Colonel's dead. And no, someone says, "What about the Colonel?" John, they killed the colonel. You were there. And then back to the past. You save the colonel, go back, dead, and then you're kind of saving them one by one. And then you go to Queens to you change history so that basically in the past you find out, oh, we're trailing some psychic stuff. We think this is some secretive kind of Russian experiment. But oh no, these are US Special Forces. What are they doing here? And they're on the hunt for the psychic powers too. And then there are psychic children running around saying, hey, John, come save us, please. And John's like, John, it's not real. Yeah. And then he keeps saving them, meets up. And then you find out your enemy is the NSE. No points for guessing who they're based on.
It's very, it feels very, like, you can tell this is a game that came out after the Bourne Identity, because it's like, what if the CIA what if they were the bad guys? And it's like,
could you imagine?
Can you imagine that? Huh?
So, basically in the past, you're trying to get to this town called Dubrensk to find a guy called Grienko, who I actually looked in. It's funny. Did either of you notice there is a large, there is a help menu, and in it's all hyperlinked things for all relevant topics and character biographies.
Oh no, I never checked that.
And, I didn't read much of it. I just learned John works for MIT, and Grienko, the Russian scientist who has the psychic children you're trying to find, was an understudy of Pavlov. Fun detail.
The dog.
Yeah.
Oh, that is good. That is very good.
As a fun detail, and all the characters, even the kind of stock teammates who are all we have the sniper woman, we have a guy from Texas, we have a European guy,
like a Hispanic guy who's the explosives expert, who's just you're really good at this, John. Man, keep it up, John.
Yeah. So. You in the present, you're kind of you're encroaching on the NSC, and you're finding your teammates or finding out they're dead. Then you go to the past and save them, and you're heading to the town of Dubrensk to crack what's going on. And it's a very well paced. If you buy into it, it's a very nice thriller.
I think one thing that we haven't quite nailed, and I think just for people at home, just to kind of give my thoughts, even though we're not quite towards the end yet, is that I think this might be my second favorite of their games that they made, and it's I never played it when it came out as a kid. I kind of knew it was the Time Splitters guy made they made a third person action game. It's okay, cool, whatevs. But then actually playing it for the podcast, it's oh no, this is this is a really, really good kind of Metal Gear past. It feels Rare made a little Metal Gear game, and it's oh, this is really good. Why doesn't everybody know about this game?
Yeah, I should be enjoying more of a cult status than it does.
Yeah, I was always a bit confused that it did get 7 out of 10s. Honestly, it's very quality. It's there's nothing you can point at in it that is bad. And as much as we make fun of the story, it's kind of in jest. The whole thing is this wonderful B-movie energy. But when you buy in, it's very well paced aside from one tutorial mission I don't like. And it's it's absorbing. It really is. It's more absorbing than a game from 2004 usually is.
It's bizarre.
It's funny because we are making fun of it, but it's this weirdly perfect tightrope walk between you can riff on this and you will have fun, or you can kind of go in on its level and you'll have fun because the characters are all kind of goofy
and I think
and very expressive.
We opened the podcast saying how great the ending is and how much we want to talk about the ending, but I think the very start of this game, aside from that one tutorial, is so good. It's all of that hospital stuff is so near perfectly executed as long as you enjoy cheese that you will be meeting it at its level. You will be buying into this. You'll be I want to see this through. I want to understand this mystery. And when you do, you just ride it the whole way through. It's really quite fantastic and fun to make fun of as well.
And it's shocking considering that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's just also that its central conceit of you find out like old X died, and it's very funny on the surface, but then you go back and you're changing the past, and that mystery is kept so good. And it is partly because John is so weirdly like resistant to the idea that is going on.
And it's the moment where like that clicked for me, where I went, "Oh, this is doing something really like this." Like I've never like seen a game, because it's like it always makes me think of like, I think No Russian is maybe the best example of this. Of you go through the level, but like anytime you like get shot to death, you just die and you fucked up. But then you get right to the end of the level and you get shot in the head, but that was actually meant to happen. And it's like, oh, well, fuck you. I did that level really well. Why am I not being like, rewarded for this? But this game is literally like, hey, if you can complete this level, like, yeah, well done. You've changed the future. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. What the fuck? All right.
That's the thing about it, because I mentioned in the other day we were having a talk in the essay Discord. It's like, hey, has anyone done flash forward in media res well? And then also time travel plots. You see a lot of people who kind of instinctively go, no, time travel bad, because time travel is very easy to cock up, but time split is just open so strong, and it's like it's using all these typically contentious devices to really good effect.
Yeah, it's clever.
It's a very clever game, and it is, I had a thought in my mind, but it's completely gone now, unfortunately. John Vattic has wiped my memory on that.
Oh no,
that's a shame. He used
something
the
I do like about
ability.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Something I do like about it, and this is totally just a Metal Gear Solid thing, but the first time I saw this happening was John would slow down to walk over corpses and tiptoe over them, and when he'd go up and down stairs, he would like tip down the stairs like a normal animated person.
The stair animation.
Yeah, it's so fast.
It's amazing, and it's funny as well to me because I work in trailer capture, and basically we always avoid stairs and inclines because the animations never look good. And I'm not going to say these would like all trailer worthy, especially because why would you show off going up and down stairs? But the fact there is a unique animation and his legs just go turbo mode down them.
There's like Wile E. Coyote just flying downstairs. Like at least skip a step. He's like gotta hit every one. Anyway,
he's doing them all like no skip, and it's now I'm just like super attuned to just look at stair animations or incline walks.
I totally remembered what I was going to say, but I'm going to try and segue it from talking about this, which is, it has still got that really decent, like, again, I don't really know.
It's got polish.
It's got a really, and it is funny that you said that, like, you can't really pick flaws in this game, but, like, in your head, you don't really go, oh, I mean, this is like, this was the Last of Us of its era. This is like,
no.
It's a fun kind of goofy thing, and it's a very well constructed package. It feels like you said earlier, like they finished this and had a year. Because one thing that I had never noticed before, but was so sensible. This is such a cool Easter egg. So I got spotted. I killed a guard and I hid, and then I used charm, walked over that corpse, and because you leave blood prints, another guard was just like, look, like he was following the footprints. Like, what's that? And I was like, holy shit, that's great. Because I had had charm going. It's like, it was just that sensible little, they thought of that. They thought of that little edge case scenario kind of happening. And it's just those little details that can really just kind of, it's the smallest things that can just impress you in the biggest way.
Yeah. It's almost funny because the basic gameplay loop, while good, is dated and probably wasn't super cutting edge at the time either.
It was like, I think it was a step above Metal Gear Solid 2, and it came out a couple months before 3 came out because it had the camera.
It had the camera,
Yeah, and actually just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just remember, this is one of the earliest games, I think, where the controls are always displayed on screen.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you look in the bottom right, your current actions are always there, which is, it made me think, I only really started noticing that design trend around 2015.
Well, I was going to say, like, Resident Evil 4 is the one that goes into my head of, like, it always tells you what the big A button's going to do. And then after that, it's Assassin's Creed, where it always shows you what the face buttons are going to do.
I know, but I'm kind of talking about, it's been a thing in games lately, and I'm generally not a big fan of it. It kind of takes me out, but it's in the Judgment games. It's in the new Spider-Man. In the bottom right, it will just list, hey, it will basically just give you a rundown of what all of your functions are. And
like Red Dead 2.
Yeah, this is a bit better about it. I still don't, I kind of forgive it for this game. That could be nostalgia goggles. It could be that everything else is so immersive, but it's just, it only tells you, like, most of the time it's just, hey, press B to crouch, because that's all you kind of got available.
It's funny that that's always there.
Yeah.
But, I think Hitman 2 did it earlier than this.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, I can't think earlier than that. But yeah, it's a funny thing about this game. It's a funny little... Yeah, it's I guess what I was saying, like, stuff like that and stuff about the gameplay, you can see people, especially now, just bouncing off it and thinking it's, dated and whatever. But it was kind of all the stuff around the edges, like the bloody footprints and the computer screens and the sniper rifle that kind of charmed you about how it played. And I think that can be lost when trying to recommend it to someone even then, because it isn't perfect.
It's one of those weird things where, like, because you're talking about the edges, and the core experience is what can bounce people off, and you go, well, but look at all this cool stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I have to put up with this to get there.
Do you think it's a bit like how I sort of described Black when we did that episode, which is it's an FPS game that you would appreciate more having played other FPS games. Like, you wouldn't give Black to somebody as their first game.
Absolutely no. This is way too weird and deep end. Like, this is... You give this to a Metal Gear Solid fan, or you give this to, like, a Splinter Cell fan, or someone who's actually, I would probably, just because of the weird complications, I'd probably sooner give this to a Splinter Cell, even though it's closer to MGS in nature. It's just that it's Splinter Cell's more episodic. The story is kind of more on it's pace. I can't say for Easter eggs, but it's kind of that element of it where this is, I don't want to say game for gamers because but it's.
But it's something that you'd appreciate more when you kind of know what it's riffing on and can sort of appreciate what it's doing. And
it's a weird convalescence of who would be ideally into this game, because it's very unlike, if you're a Time Splitters fan, it's not a direct recommend unless you just want to support the studio.
I think if you, and this was the point I was going to make, which was following this, like, this is not like Time Splitters. Like, if anything, this just goes to show the breadth of, like, we can make, like, the best FPS game of all time, but we can also make, like, a really solid third-person game where the tone is completely different. Because the plot of this game is, like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's fantastic because I feel like that's but it is so well done. But the tone is, like, the tone of Time Splitters 2 is, you're Captain Ash, and monkeys are throwing watermelons, and it's like, very kind of quirky, tongue-in-cheek. And then this is, like, serious for the most part and really well done. And then the game where they are meant to be serious is dog shit. It's just haze.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier, is they had one good tale in them. They weren't a kitsune. One good tale. That was fucking it. God, it is genuinely kind of puts into, like, what happened here? You guys are perfectly capable of writing a good story.
Yeah, I'd love to know what happened to Hayes. I almost want to, like, go send some emails and try and find out for myself.
Believe me, I've tried. I've sent so many DMs to David Doak being like, I'm doing a podcast about Free Radical, can I ask some questions? But just did not hear anything back.
They don't want to talk about it. It's PTSD to them.
It's a scar. It runs deep. It still hurts.
I mean, I think, obviously we'll dig into it in the Hayes episode, but like, the long and short of it is, fucking Ubisoft corporate meddling is the reason why Haze is as bad as it is, like, across all
Minimme, I've been learning from James, who is the research guy on this. The story of Free Radical is one of a group of people who were very, very good at what they were doing, and no one above them knowing what to do with that.
It seems that way.
Literally, like, the Time Splitters thing is that they made, like, fabulous games, but everyone went, how do we sell this? It's like, what do you mean, how do you sell this? is the everything FPS game. Yeah, but people like military shooters or they like Halo, and this game is neither of those things. It's like, for fuck's sake, guys.
It's funny because this game didn't sell well either because it's so. It's such a strange beast, but also Time Splitters wasn't selling because kind of mainstream gaming was going through a kind of teenage edge phase.
Yeah.
Like kind of moroseness was what was doing kind of well-ish. Like very, very self-serious. And then Time Splitters, which was kind of a lot more levity, a lot goofier, but also just a conceit which lets you do whatever you want. And then this game, which is maybe a bit too far because it's serious, but not in a very morose way. Like there's still levity. The story is, I mean, it's a good like summer movie thriller.
Like, it's like X-Files-y kind of fun version.
Yeah.
There's like still a little bit of pulp to it, still a little bit of fun. It's like freewheeling and adventurous. It's not, the characters aren't like getting really sad about their situation.
It's not like a Prince of Persia Warrior Within level of mid-2000s angst. It's fun about it.
or Jack too.
And it kind of goes into John displaying the confidence, because I think the game does sell, like, it sells the stakes of the situation and, like, this is a really big overarching conspiracy, but the characters don't really stand around going, God, how are we going to do this?
No.
Oh, God, we're
Well, no, like,
they just
go
get
for it.
on with it.
Yeah.
So the sergeant character who you would expect to be like the ball buster, he's like enjoying it as much as like John is. Like
He's such a lovely man. He is such
he's
a lovely
really
guy.
Nice.
Yeah. And I
Like,
love that everyone's just having a great time. Like there's all this it's like The Mummy. It's like just this small crew going through a horrific situation but kind of loving it.
Like, you're getting into gunfights and, like, it's this weird kind of combination of, like, the game has destructible cover as well, and, like, the gunfights in the Siberia sections can get really intense, and, like, stuff's blowing up around you, your fence is falling a bit, but then you, like, pop up and you headshot a soldier, and, like, the guy next to you go, good shot, Vattic!
Yeah.
That's what I mean. They all love, it's John,
They
like,
love
this
him.
entire game takes place during John Vatic's birthday, because they're all being really nice to him.
They're also lovely, and then, like, every time... There's one mission very early on, the mission where you go into the past and you wind up circumventing Stark's death, the Colonel. And, like, throughout the mission, every time you do an objective, he's like, great work, John. Good going. He's like, it's the most, like, delightful, like, encouragement that you could get.
It's so good. I love it so much. I love how they all love John.
Everyone's so nice in the Winter Ice team. You want to save them because they're all just lovely. They're all just good people.
Genuine people.
And it doesn't feel like it's the thing of like, you know, like the video, like I guess Half-Life 2 is the go-to example in my head where like they treat you like a godlike being. And it's like, well, I didn't play the first one, so I don't know how good, I don't really know how good Gordon Freeman is in this case. It's more just like everyone's nice to John.
they're just nice people.
Which might be a contrast of because all the stuff in the future, especially early on, is like he's not really talking to anyone and just like police officers are shooting at him. So maybe they thought like, oh, maybe the past stuff we need to make this a little bit nicer as a contrast. I don't know.
It's weird. It's funny that like the high stakes military mission is like filled with action and levity, and then you get to the present day and it's all these kind of stealth sections, and it's a lot more downbeat and slow paced. And so we save Jane, and one of my favorite cutscenes is just so Stark. So basically, what happens is you find out that by saving Colonel Stark, he got court-martialed because you guys just killed a bunch of US Special Forces, and now he's in hiding. And then, okay, you and Jane, in the present, you go to Queens to track him down, and he's got a local gang kind of helping him, and there's a bunch of MIBs, like genuine Men in Black style goons, kind of skulking the neighborhood, like beating the shit. There's one scene where one guy just goes to town on one of the gangsters, like, tell me where the Colonel is. And then John turns up, and you've got to solve a bunch of puzzles to get their trust.
It's an odd, like, this is maybe the only bit of the game, maybe the NSA bit. This is where the puzzle stuff maybe got a little bit too...
There's a bit of a midsection kind of fumble, I feel. But
I think the main issue is that they don't really
Fighter.
signal the puzzle too well, I suppose.
This one I got, but infiltration is the one for me, or it's Conspiracy.
And that's the one which is at
Yeah.
the
This is
CIA.
that's when you start breaking into the NSE and the plot really starts picking up. But Street Life has my favorite little John moment because he sounds so unsure of it. He's like, he knows they're getting tailed, like Jane's driving, and he gets out and he says in this tone, which is so wonderfully unsure, like, circle the block, I'll be right back. And she just drives off. And it's this lovely little character moment of, yeah, this guy's still a fucking dork. Like,
yeah.
he's not quite equipped. It's just, I don't know, if you watch the cutscene, you'll kind of see it where the way he just throws out circle to block, like, well, that's what they do in the movies, so I guess that's what we're going to do here.
So we're past an hour 15. So
oh god, that was the cutoff I gave for ending spoilers. Okay, shit. Well,
that was for end. Oh yeah, no. So we are now in Watershed, folks. Which, hi, welcome to Bullets Time, the video game. I know I can't do that. I already did that. Dang it.
No, it's a flashback. It's fine.
Okay. But that kind of fits with Infiltration, which is sort of where the reveal happens, because it's not so much a twist as it is a reveal of information which recontextualizes the game.
It is a big recontextualization. But just while I'm scrambling, because I had started Street Life has one of my favorite Easter eggs, which is, did you try talking to any of the gangsters?
I think so, yeah. And I went up as like John, and they were just like, "Hey, go away," or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you possess another gangster and try talking to the gangsters?
Oh,
No.
There is dialogue for that, and it is the
good.
most hilarious dialogue. There is one line that just sticks out to me as hilarious, even though it's because it's delivered so flatly. If you possess another gang member and go up and talk to them, he'll say, "Hello there, New York gang buddy." It's one of my favorite lines of dialogue in possibly any game. But no, that's just another little Easter egg like edge case that no, they did not need to do that. But
but it's a nice touch. It's very rare style humor, which I kind of like.
I wonder if it probably did, but I wonder if the fact that the guy voicing John being a guy on staff who's like an animator or something, right? Like, is that part of the reason there's so many little dialogue Easter eggs when he's talking to people or on the computer and stuff?
I mean, maybe his knowledge kind of traveled into, we can get all this going.
Yeah.
We can toss all of this in. Again, it's the edge thing where this game is just so filled with charming details, and we've skipped a bunch of stages, but I think besides the sewer level,
Forgot
there is a sewer level, and it's very
Of course
boring.
there is. It's the mid-2000s.
There was a very large sewer beneath the asylum.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, actually now we're just on going back to the asylum. There's another Easter egg I like. So you know that cutscene where Jane kind of crosses a rickety bit of scaffolding and then a guy screams at her and it collapses?
Yes.
Yeah, you can trank that guy before that happens and skip the cutscene. It's just little things like that, because you can perfectly see him through the skylight.
Oh, that happened to me, actually, because then I got confused and wasn't sure where to go. So I looked up on YouTube and I was like, oh, that didn't happen for me. What the heck? And it's because I tranked him earlier on.
Yeah, so again, it's just all those little things where, like, that feels like in most other games, that would be just something that has to happen, and you get this little moment which teaches you, hey, you can lift this. But if you just like it, the world kind of follows an internal logic, and it doesn't arbitrarily screw you a lot of the time. Like, the game gives you opportunities to be clever, but again, there's the irony in that if you are being clever, then you kind of miss the, I don't know, it's weird.
Although it's funny because that very much fits within the plot of, no, I want to go, like, if I'm in the past and I'm playing this past mission, I don't want to be on rails and fail this. I actually want to, like, solve this. And the game just lets you, and then it goes, okay, futures change, and it's like, oh, okay. Because the opposite is true in regards to, if you fail stuff in the past, you get, like, special game over, like, screens as well.
Once you get near the end of the game and certain reveals start coming, partway early on, this is a character we haven't mentioned, who is Director Hansen, who I just in my brain is just Niles Crane. Like, he just looks like a lizard time splitters version of Niles Crane to me, and I can't break that.
Right.
Do you want to know who he's voiced by, James? He came up last episode.
Oh god. So what? It was somebody in Time Splitters 2?
Yeah.
So it was the guy that played Harry Tripper then?
Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt.
Oh,
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Now playing Director Evil, Director Evil,
Director Evil.
Yeah, I mean, he basically is. He's delightfully evil.
yeah.
He made a really evil PowerPoint that made you go back to the past, and then he came back to the future, and the PowerPoint changed.
Okay, so yeah, we do Street Life. We solve a bunch of weird puzzles to get to meet Tom Clark Hill, Colonel Stark, and it's like he fills you in. It's like NSC. There's a big shootout level. It's one of the more bland levels because it's just a straightforward shootout with Clark to escape the building. And then John goes on the offensive, goes directly to the NSC. It's actually a very compact story.
Yeah, no, it is very boom. Like,
yeah, there's no time wasted. I love the cutscene where John comes into the NSC. Absolutely delightful scene where it's John at his most confident guy because he kind of walks in and he's talking to the lobby guard.
I want to talk to I want to talk to Hanson. Okay, and what's your name? John Vattic. And they look at and then they do like big time splitters, faces, like looking at the computer.
Yeah, and John and then they have a very cartoony moment where like the guy's in shock, like, oh my god, John Vattic, and he looks up, John's not there, and he just clocks him in the side of the head and says, "Guess you heard of me." Wow, you have gone from dork, haven't you?
Oh, it's so good. Like, who is
He's
this
having
man?
fun.
Yeah, like John just does not get downbeat about the horrible situation he's in. He's
No.
like, actually, this is rad. This is my chance to be the coolest guy. And thus begins the worst level of the game.
Where it's a game in this cool stealth action game full of third-person shooting where the main puzzle is copying a file from one floppy disk to another.
A mechanic which is not introduced earlier and very awkwardly signposted. John walks in. You just kind of have to luckily walk into a storage cupboard where John sees some floppy disks and goes, I guess I need a floppy disk.
These might come in handy.
It's like, why would he take them? Anyway,
And it's just like and all the floppy disk stuff, it's never been copy that floppy. It's always just been, this has a cool Easter egg game on it.
Yeah.
It's never been like, so you find it, and then in this very annoying, slow to traverse, like little office complex, you have to then intuit, go to a computer in this one random office block, copy a file, then go to this other arbitrary computer somewhere else in the building and copy it. And play that file.
Yeah, and then drag it into that computer. And then open up a video codec thing that then says, okay, this will now be on the projector. Thank you. But you have to like drag it onto the desktop. It won't read it off the floppy disk.
It's such an annoying, like, this stopped me dead when I was a child and is the reason I didn't finish it until I was like an adult, because I just came back and I tried and I was like, I have to look up a guide. And the funny thing is, this stage, if you know how to beat it, it's the shortest level in the game. If you don't, it's a nightmare. Like, you can clock this thing in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. I remember as a kid I had to look it up, and like I didn't finish the game the other night preparing for this podcast. I got sort of close, but the one memory I really have of the ending, besides the twist, is the whole like I remember just walking around in that level for ages, having no idea. But
it just killed like the kind of momentum and excitement of like the street life and the shootout and getting out of there, and then John having the dumbest, coolest like line, and oh god, welcome to, I can't even remember if it's called Conspiracy or Infiltration, but
something like that.
Yeah. And then good luck.
You watch
John walks into a room and sees a PowerPoint, and it's kind of a cool scene where John like sees Psi soldiers on the screen and then for the first time intentionally goes back to the past.
Yeah, no, he's realized I can change I guess Stark kind of refers to it, and he's you got a gift, John, like you can fix this, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do that then. Yeah,
the hints are really obvious. I'm sad that I didn't play. Did you pick up on the twist, James? Like I when I was a kid, it just flew right over my head because of course it did. And then playing it again now, I knew the twist. So
I picked up the twist around whatever the mission is before Stark, because I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're doing now, right?
Yeah,
and that
okay.
actually kind of... Because I like this game, but I was just kind of like, I can see why people maybe didn't like this, because if there was like 15 missions of this, yeah, it's kind of just like eating gruel for every meal. But then the twist happens, it's like, oh no, I need to see what happens in the rest of this game. I need to see like what they do with this idea.
Yeah, it's clever.
Yeah, it's very neat. And then, yeah, you watch a PowerPoint which shows how many psychic children they have, and you go back in time, and then you get all the big action-packed levels at the end of the game, which is quite nice.
Has one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to do in this level is, so one of your mates has a big machine gun. I would always use possession plus on him and just commandeer his big, typically unusable machine gun to just wreck the stage. And again, it's just something the game never signals to you. It's just you kind of think, hey, I've got possession plus at this point. I can take over other people. And that's an ability we didn't get into was, you could just start possessing people and using them to do
the
stuff.
last level, you pretty much have to use it non-stop because they have like the super soldiers, well, I call them super soldiers, but they're like the spec ops guys, which it becomes a game of take over a guy, open a door, stop, then as Vattic, run through the door while it's still open. It feels so, like, kind of pathetic for that point of the game, but...
I do think, gameplay-wise, you have this great, really fun level where you and the Winter Ice team are cracking this castle, and you can use all your abilities. Like, John starts getting his abilities in the past, and you have, like, this fun combo, like, action and stuff, and it feels like really... Yeah, everything's ramping up. You can do all this cool shit, and you have the guns, and you have the team. Great gameplay escalation. And then you get into the bunker, and you get into the town with the super soldiers, and it's some of the worst gameplay that the game offers. Because everyone's a bullet sponge now. It's not fun.
The game does fumble the ball right at the end, which is... Apart from the plot stuff, and I guess maybe right at the end where it kind of becomes cathartic, but... Yeah, that final level is it sucks. It's not great.
Yeah. It's the final chunk of them where it's like, okay, it's a fine escalation of challenge, but it's like no one here is enjoyable to fight. And the bunker level is just weird and arbitrary, and it's kind of the continuation of the conspiracy infiltration level where oh god, but now there's super soldiers everywhere.
It leans a little bit too much on the kind of mean, old, rare fashion design of, well, if we just make this as convoluted as possible, that's the challenge, and it's like...
It's genuinely the final set of levels can be just... they could be compared to just having a big, knotted up bundle of wires that you need to pull out, and also you're being poked.
As the difficulty ramped in that game, it kind of there were abilities that it made less sense to use. And it sort of turned into more of like a shooter because it had to, because it got harder, you know?
Yeah.
Like charm just becomes useless at that.
Yeah. And
you
I
just
think
become dependent on your assault rifle, and that's kind of tragic.
Yeah. I think it didn't lean into its strengths with all the physics stuff when it got going, but it was still fun, and possessing people is a lot of fun. So
when you go back to the present, they introduce John clones, and I wish they did a little bit more with that.
Yeah, those guys were at least kind of fun to fight.
Yeah, I forgot.
They're at least a little unique. They're not.
I thought they were gonna. To be honest, I thought the twist of the game was going to be you find out that you're like one of those John clones as well, but never
I'm glad it did not take that.
No, I know, because that would have made it feel like, so I feel like I'm not like what I did was kind of it was sort of cut in half because of that. You know? Yeah.
But no. So you're raiding the NSC. You get up into you're jumping. I'm jumping around. The game and us are jumping around, but
we got it.
The plots kind of start running a lot more parallel to each other. As in the past, you make it to this town called Debrensk. There's been psychic children telling you, John, you have to come here and save us. And John's like, yeah, okay, I will. And then Yeah, and you start learning that, Hansen, not evil Niles, he's betrayed Grienko and he just wants his research and he's going to use it for the NSE's ends. Then in the NSE building, John storms Hansen's office and he gets past all these Psi soldiers. He holds him up, and the most delightfully evil line is John holding him up with Psi power by the throat and he's like, "You butchered them, you mutilated them," and he just goes, "Oh, suffer the little children."
Oh, it feels like they came up with that part first and then said, okay, how can we write an entire game around that line?
Yeah.
I love, it's just, when you get into it, that is one of those lines that is both exactly what wavelength the game is on, what kind of cheesy pulpy, and you buy into it and you have fun, but also the villain genuinely, when confronted with the fact he killed children, is just I'm hamming it. Just going.
It's so good. It's funny going back to you mentioning the early 2000s morose angst, and I think the cover art was born out of that.
The cover art of this game is hilarious because it looks like it should be the cover of a Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Just to describe to people at home who haven't seen it, it is a black and white image which has been tinted to black and red of a bald guy with his hands on his head like he's, oh God, what have I done? But holding a loaded pistol, against his head.
It genuinely, David Cage would look at it and go, "That's too on the nose."
But tonally, there is no point in the game that feels like it matches the tone of that cover.
The press start screen is the only time you feel maybe this is that game.
And even then, the main menu screen is slightly fumbled when, you actually see the computer and it's just the profile select. So it's John can't figure out how to log on to the computer.
Yeah,
how do I log on?
He's
not
smashing
even
the
looking
table.
at anything.
Yeah.
How do I set up a profile? Maybe it is just he doesn't remember his fucking name yet.
What's my password? Did it have a number in it? Oh, God.
What do I even call myself? I made the profile Steve. Just having a guess.
Good, because
I
it said
look like
John.
a Steve.
Yeah.
I called mine Jamps. Jampes.
I do like thinking about John Vatic's username, gamer name.
What was his game? What was John Vattic's game tag?
Oh, that's tricky. XXX_VATS and big capitalized T's. I see Vattic in the attic.
Vatic in the attic. Yeah.
Vattic in the attic. The vacuum cleaner.
The Vatican.
The Vatican. There we go.
That's good.
And then you get to the end of the game, I guess.
I think his username would actually be Psychic Debunker 12.
There we go.
I hate psychics.
I hate Psychic 69 at hotmail.com.
Rationalist 12.
How are there 11 other rationalists? How did they manage this? So you get to the end of the game then. You can travel back in time and you're going to save the kids. John says, no, I'm going to save the children.
Oh yeah, it's a very hammy moment where just after choking this guy and suffer the little children, Hansen yells at him, "You can't change the past, John." And John's like, "I'll show you."
Yeah, and he just grabs his head and is like, if the time continued on in the future, are they just watching him do that? What's going on?
"I'll show you" has a stroke.
Yeah, has a big nosebleed.
He's just unconscious for an hour. He comes back.
Yeah, he just passes out on the floor and they're like, "Oh shit."
What do we do?
They're just what's standing there watching him, waiting for him to be done.
He does this all the time.
Everyone in the room, "I'll show you, Hansen."
It's happening again. He's just...
James just "Oh God, he's doing it."
He's so embarrassing, and I'm a psychic.
And yeah, then you get into the final level, which kind of change. It's not just the bunker. You're running through the bunker, and then at times you shoot back to the NSC. And who wants to say it? Who wants to say it?
Minimme, you're the special guest.
It's been so long since I've played the ending. You say it.
Oh no.
Oh God. Okay. So you start the past and the present start to blend together in a weird way. And yeah, you start at the NSC building, you go to the asylum, and eventually it's like you're going back in time until John Vattic from the past meets John Vattic from the present. He's watching himself in the bed, the hospital bed that he was in at the beginning of the game, and he's looking at him and he goes, "This doesn't make any sense." And Hospital John looks at past John and says, "Well, here's the thing, bud. This isn't the future. This is a possible future."
Yeah. And it comes back and John's like... So basically the game kind of shifts the focus, and yeah, it turns out the past sections in Siberia, that was the present. Yep. Everything else was you changing the future. And I don't know if we've sold it right, but it's just the way it delivers it is so strong.
Yes.
It just lands that... It needed to land that beat, and it does.
Mm-hmm. And the way that, like, mechanically it works quite nicely as well is throughout, every time you go to the present or the past, it goes Dupresnik or, like, this level, and then underneath it says 6 months ago or 7 months ago. And then the twist happens, and then it goes, like, this level... right now, or like whatever it is, or like the present, and it's like, oh, okay, interesting.
So yeah, all the present, and it's like a twist that, again, like I feel like could be derided. It's like such thin ice because half the game didn't actually happen. You were just like you prevented all of it. That guard you killed, you didn't kill him. His girlfriend will be fine.
Yeah, you didn't choke out all those people in the mental asylum.
You didn't play any of those mini games you found on floppy disks.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole twist is like it's a possible version of the future. It sounds so much cheesier than it is when you're playing the game.
It's funny how like we all kind of bounce because like playing it works. Saying it out loud, it's like even with saying it, we can't sell the fact.
No, it's the way that the presentation's done. And I think as well it helps that they introduce the first twist of you're changing the past from the present. But then they go, well, the reason that was happening is because there is no present. This is the future, or a possible future. The present was the past. Like, everything that happened 6 months ago, no, that's real time. Everything else is speculative. And it's like, it's such an interesting idea. And I've never really, like, there's no game that's done it other than this. And I think, like, this really nails the landing of it. Because, again, it's so at the end of the game, and it's so, like, because we've already been messing around with time travel, it's like, no, I totally buy into this. So weird that the guys who made Time Splitters would actually make a game that deals in a really interesting way with time travel. Like
it genuinely feels just like a flex because the Time Splitter series just uses it as like a plot contrivance for having all these fun stages.
Levels,
this is just them showing off that. Yeah, no, we could fucking actually knock out a story about this.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think like. Every time every time Second Sight needs to land a story beat, it does pretty much.
Yeah,
and it's
there isn't a bum note.
No, like even tonally, as much as we make fun of it for being a B movie, when you're in the moment playing the game, it works.
Yeah, it's this really weird, daft creature where you explain it and you kind of have to point out. Yeah, this is goofy as hell, but then you get in, and if you're actually like on its wavelength, enjoying it for what it is, it's all very, very well done.
Yeah,
and that's kind of that's what's so fun about it. I feel is just because it has that in itself, that levity and that seriousness. It has that grimness, but also the cartoon aesthetic.
It's incredible that they balanced that so well. For a game that really could have, it's so broad in scope. When it comes to storytelling, it could have fumbled it at any point, but it didn't.
If it just like overstepped in like any way, in like either being too silly or being too grim or just not quite selling a tone, not quite a character, not feeling like all there. And it's funny because generally all the characters they're not flat, they're not two-dimensional, but they're very movie archetype-y kind of characters.
Yeah.
And you kind of know what you're getting with them. Like they are fun. They are fun, direct characters.
It's why I think it's the better GameCube Metal Gear game, because it's like it just balances that tone so well versus Twin Snakes, which wildly changes gear between the voice acting and plot of MGS1, and then he does a giant cartwheel past a door. Like
This one never. John Vattic does no flips in this game.
He doesn't ride any missiles.
Not even one. He never does a flip to kick up a sniper rifle, do 2 spins, and then land a headshot.
No.
And then
But
have
he
a
is very
sad scene about it.
He is very good at getting headshots, though. Which,
Oh, yeah.
He's in very good shape.
Yeah, it is interesting that you say it's such a flex, because it is like going from the last episode that we did on Time Splitters 2, where they had to put me in a straight jacket and a padded cell because of how much like I was evangelizing that game, and to this, where the original plan was they were going to make a single player game before they made Time Splitters 1, and this is just such a thing of because the single player in Time Splitters 2 is fantastic, but this is just like such a like this as a story game, as something which like its closest equivalent today would be something like The Last of Us. This is like, and it's so weird saying it's
genuinely
exceptional
funny.
because
It's funny because it is a movie game, but it is a movie game in that it feels like you've got an action movie plot. Whereas when people say movie game today, it tends to be very derisive.
yeah,
Whereas, like this and like Dead to Rights are movie games of this era, where they are just so cinematically inspired. But that tends to be more like pulpy or more kind of John Woo kind of stuff. Rather than, I don't know, I don't hate modern movie games. I feel it's a very buzzwordy term that's used to just shorthand like, oh, I don't like this thing. I'm not going to explain why. Here's a word. But I like this a bit. I like this a bit more. This is more.
Exactly. This is more my speed. I think. And
it's funny that we prefer this style of a movie game being told to the modern ones almost, because this kind of game wasn't very common back then. They sort of happened, but this wasn't the sort of quintessential 2004 game by any means. And to see the industry trend towards what this game did, not to say this had any influence at all on that.
That's the remit of this podcast. It's the stuff which influence just kind
I mean,
of...
I said at the beginning, it's the shooters that missed their mark, but sometimes it's not because they were bad. It's just because like maybe they were like really ambitious and did so many great things at the time, but they've just kind of been forgotten by history in a weird way.
It's kind of funny to think about Time Splitters' relationship to this as well, because if you played both in 2004, you'd think that Time Splitters is this sort of frictive, gameplay-focused, snappy game. And this one's sort of way more clunky. But now when you play both of them, they kind of meet each other on the same level of dated clunkiness. and as such, everything else that Second Sight does, at least to me, I think is far more interesting than Time Splitters. Not to shit on Time Splitters because it's very good.
Oh, no, I get what you're saying. It's like, by far and away, the more unique.
Yeah.
Time Splitters at its heart and soul is a kind of gameplay continuation of what GoldenEye was doing.
Yeah.
And it's like very good. It's not done nowadays, but it's also like, you got far more GoldenEye than you have whatever Second Sight is.
Yeah, like it's funny that Second Sight is a game, like, is a modern game made back then, whereas Time Splitters is a 90s game made in the future a bit, you know, like...
Yeah, that's the perfect way of putting it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that does answer a question you've had repeatedly, James, which is Time Splitters in any way a boomer shooter? No, it's a 90s shooter that is in the future.
My god. You did it.
There you go, Minimme. You've come in and you've given him the code.
I'm glad.
We did. We've unlocked it. We've unlocked big head mode. I now have a big head thinking about this.
Oh, this game could have had a big head mode.
This game should have had a big head mode. Do we have any final thoughts on Second Sight before we wrap things up? I mean, my final note is just... You have to be a bit into games to like really enjoy this, but this is like... this came out in 2004. I'm trying to rack my brain of like what this was competing against, but like...
I already... Because, Minimme, we're about to have a release chart quiz, and I already know what number one is going to be, unless it didn't come out yet. Actually, maybe it didn't.
A release chart quiz? What do you mean?
Yeah, let's do this very quick because I know you haven't got a ton of time.
I just want to say my final
20
note,
minutes.
though, quick. I really regret I already made a video on this game because I'm way better at making videos now, and this game deserves a better video than the one I made back then.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's on those horrible bits of like, oh man, all these games I loved, I could do them so much better now, but the enthusiasm of back then.
What about you, though, Minimme? What's your final thoughts on Insight?
Yeah, I agree that it's a game. Like you almost have to know the context of how it was released to really enjoy it. But also, on the other hand, it's aged quite well.
Yeah.
I think if you appreciate games that are clearly a labor of love,
Yes.
and that you like to see that reflected in the product, especially in a big AAA expensive for the time product, then yeah, play Second Sight. It's quite good. It's be a little open-minded because it's janky and old and go past that first tutorial mission. But if you appreciate, Easter eggs and clever little design things, then it's very, very fun.
Well put. So, this game qualified for the charts on September 4th, 2004. Just for the folks at home, this game debuted at number 8 on the UK charts. So, you know what? Let's do this up to 10 again, because we had quite a bit of fun doing this on the last episode as well. Just to kind of give you an overview. So, I'm going to give you some clues of what with the top 10 games in the charts at this time. This is the UK multi-platform charts, but just to give you kind of a context of what was out.
I have an advantage.
There's no buzzers. You're just going to have to, you just race each other for answers, I suppose.
Okay, I'll try my best.
I said to Snake that this is a really funny chart when I was researching it, and this is kind of why. The first and second games are incredibly similar to one another. They were both released this week. And the one that's at number 1 is one that Snake guessed pretty quickly on the Time Splitters 2 episode, which was an FPS game.
Oh.
Both of these are FPS games dealing with the same time period of a conflict sort of in the 60s and 70s.
Oh.
60s and 70s? 60s and
We
70s.
got Battlefield Vietnam.
It's not Battlefield Vietnam, but they are two Vietnam games.
Is it Shell Shock?
So Shell Shock Nam 67 is number 2 this week.
Wow. Viet Cong?
Okay.
It's not Viet Cong, no.
God, that's the only other thingy shooter I remember.
So the first one is in a series that we were talking about last episode. It is a single word, very blunt, Vietnam.
Is it Conflict Vietnam?
Conflict Vietnam, new this week, number 1, followed by Shell Shock Nam 67. Man,
I don't even think, not that there's actually a point system where it's competitive. Man, I have such an unfair advantage.
Well, you say that.
Okay.
But wait until we get into the other ones. But yeah, weird how big Vietnam was at this moment. But I think it was because, Battlefield Vietnam was coming out, and I think people were like, oh, well, Vietnam's the next big thing. Let's look at that. So,
yeah, it must have been. We've done World War II. We've had 20 Medal of Honor games in 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just about to just blurt out, Medal of Honor Frontline, because you said it's one you mentioned, and I was like, 60s and 70s, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at number 3 this week, down from number 2, is a movie tie-in game, one that people consider as one of the best sort of games in a particular genre of all time. It's open world, is what I'll say.
Open world movie game. Down from number 2. What came out in?
I feel like I've probably covered this.
So the reason I'm laughing about this list is that most of these are games you've covered.
Oh boy. Until you
world.
said that, I thought, was it King Kong? But
yeah,
no,
I was
King
thinking
Kong.
Riddick maybe.
It's not Riddick. It's a film that came out in 2004, a huge film that came out in 2004, a sequel that came out in 2004.
And had an open world
Open world?
game.
Yeah.
God, what are we missing here? There's people screaming at the screen.
Yeah,
right now.
100%. They're screaming at me.
I'm going to give you the YouTube clue then. This game has a mechanic in it that was developed by a single guy in his own time.
Oh, Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Oh boy, of course, yeah. People are going to
cool,
be
cool,
screaming.
cool. I haven't done a
right.
video on that, at least.
Excellent. You have done a video on this game, though.
I've done a video on Spider-Man 2, but I did the PC version.
Yeah. At number 4 this week, up from 9th place, is a video game that is one of Minimme's most popular videos.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Shit.
It's another open world game as well.
We're
Is
a
it
couple of
Driver?
years off of cars.
Is it driver free?
Driver Free is number 6 this week.
Oh,
boy,
charts.
okay.
Gone down a bit.
Yeah, down from 4th place
Damn it.
to number 4.
The open world thing is throwing me. I always think of like GTA clones to come out in 05
This
and
is
06.
this is a GTA clone.
Is it True Crime New York?
It is not.
It's a movie
okay.
game, right?
Movie game.
It's a game based on a television show.
Oh, the Godfather game.
No. too
On a
early.
television show.
Oh god, sorry, no, my brain. This is a Sopranos game. No, that's not open world. Oh god,
Somebody is currently remaking this game.
the Warriors? No, that's not open world.
Remaking this game?
Somebody's remaking this game on their own, and they've redone all the cut scenes and stuff like that.
Oh, The
Okay.
Simpsons. The Simpsons Hit and Run.
The Simpsons Hit and Run, up from 9th place.
Of course.
Man, that was a journey from Godfather to The Simpsons. What the fuck
That game
did-
came out in 2003. It needs to stop selling by this point. Anyway.
It's
yeah.
up from
no.
9th place. People really like it.
Yeah.
Number 5 on the charts, down from number 1. It is. I mean, I'll give you what the game is, but I want you to tell me what its name is because it's the Olympics game for this.
Athens.
Athens 2004.
Athens 2004,
Yes,
yeah.
Athens 2004. That's right.
Very good.
Yeah, down from number 1 to number 5. Number 6, we've already got. It's Driver Free. So number 7, up from 8th place, is this year's entry in a long-running racing game franchise.
Gran Turismo.
Not Gran Turismo.
Is it F1?
Not F1. No. It is a. It's an EA game.
That doesn't
Need for
help me, I'm
Speed
not-
Underground 2.
I'll give it to you. It's Need for Speed Underground 1.
Okay. I don't know when 2 came out. Cool.
No, all good for that. Number 8 is Second Sight. So at number 9, down from 7th place, is a sports game.
FIFA.
FIFA 2004 is number 9. And then finally, at number 10, down from 3rd place, is the newest entry in the game that, if it wasn't for this game, this podcast wouldn't exist.
Oh. Snake?
Okay. Well, God. No, that was years later. It can't be that. It's not the monster hunting shooter game, right?
No, it's not. It's the game that invented the genre that made this podcast possible.
What? What? I'm a co-host. And I'm like, wait, what? Wait,
Wait, what? This game wasn't well
Oh.
received because it wasn't like the first two. It was more of a tech demo.
Driver 3.
Not Driver Free, no,
Yeah.
that's still number 6.
Oh God. Oh, I mean, Driver Free. It could be buggy enough that it could get into.
I mean,
two places
I'll
on
give
a
you this
chart.
one. It is the 3rd game in the series.
Departure.
Who published it?
Previous.
Activision.
I'm stumped. I'm like, it's
It's
the
the-
reason.
4.
Don't
What
tell me.
What would you
Don't
say
tell
is
me.
the game in your head? What is the game that codified the FPS genre?
Call of Duty 4.
It's not Call of Duty 3, no.
Oh, it's not Call of Duty 2, is it?
It's not Call of Duty 2 either, no.
That's EA.
EA, God. Activision.
This game, okay, I'll give you a clue then.
Is it a Turok game? No,
it's not a surrogate game. This game was derided because you couldn't shoot and look at the same time.
You couldn't shoot and look at the same.
'Cause it was
is
so
it,
dark.
Is it Doom Free?
Doom Free at number
Oh.
10, down from 3rd place.
Doom Free is the
Activision?
reason this podcast exists.
Yes, Doom is the reason this podcast exists because it invented, it codified the FPS genre.
Oh, yeah. I
I
probably should have got that clue.
I mean, I guess, but I was taking that clue as it codified what we're on about with the FTN one.
Yeah, fair enough.
I misled myself.
Whoops.
That's my bad. Okay, yeah, Doom 3, God. Yeah, no, that game was fascinating because that was in stores as tech demos for a good couple of years. I remember fucking game kiosks on that bloody thing.
Yeah.
Will we do Doom 3 on the podcast? Maybe. We could do. Maybe. Minimme, it has been lovely having you on the podcast to talk about Second Sight.
It's been a pleasure.
We'd love to have you back to talk about more sort of mid-tierish stuff in the near future. But I suppose before we wrap, is there any plugs, anything you want people to have a look at?
Oh, I have a YouTube channel called Minimme, spelled Minimme, because I was a child when I made that username.
Yeah.
And yeah, I cover games that are usually movie tie-in games or just interesting, generally mid-2000s games that weren't that well received but did things that are interesting. So check that out if you like. Thank you.
Nice. I think if you're a fan of the podcast, unless you're already subscribed to Minimme, which I'm sure you are, it is very much on the same wavelength as this. So yeah, absolutely, please check it out. Snake, thank you once again for coming back to talk about Free Radical Games and a game that you have made a video on. So
yeah, not a very good one nowadays. I made that like 5 years ago now. So yeah. It was nice to have an opportunity to revisit it. It was very much a kind of rekindled love of, and like another case of, God, yeah, this game deserved better. But
yeah.
Anything you want to plug though while you're here, or?
I have not discovered any more plugs. I still have a YouTube channel somehow. That keeps happening.
Never stops happening.
But as like a co-host, I don't know if I should just thing that. No, I've got nothing.
No, absolutely. That's absolutely. If you want to promote your channel, that's absolutely fine. Kevin didn't stop promoting Pixel Lit when he was on the Raven series, so that is fine.
Okay, watch the Snaker then.
There we go.
Yeah, it's a pretty
watch
good
that
channel
as well.
Yeah,
it's a good channel. As always, I've been James. You can follow me on Twitter if it still exists at this point, at Hotcider, HOTCYDER. If it doesn't, I'll be on Tumblr and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. You can also support the podcast over at Patreon at the same address. But next time, we will be wrapping up the Time Splitters trilogy with 2005's Future Perfect, and we'll be joined by videomaker Purposeless Rabbit Holes. But until then, folks...
Can I do it?
Yeah, please do. Go.
Okay, until next time, keep psyching.
That's a good one.
Very good.
Yeah, there we go.
Yay, all right. The Bullet Time podcast is made possible by Eric Hamilton Schneider, Valerie B, VG, and the Hot Cider support tier. If you'd like to help with the production of episodes and gain access to extra content, consider supporting over at patreon.com/hotcider. That's HOTCYDER. A special thanks to Max Coburn for the Bullet Time theme tune.